This is lesson 2.10, solving one-step inequalities by multiplying and dividing. First, we're going to look at the division property of inequalities. And what this property says is if you divide by a positive number, the inequality will remain the same. Now, of course, when we're talking about dividing, we're talking about dividing on both sides of the inequality. You never do something to one side without doing it to the other side. So, if A is less than B and C is a positive number, then AC is still going to remain less than BC. If A is greater than B and C is positive, then A divided by C is greater than BC. So you can divide by a positive number, whether it's less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. It will not change the inequality at all. So some examples of this would be, get this out of the way, some examples would be 4x is less than 20. So to solve for x, you need to isolate x. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. So you get 4x divided by 4 is less than 20 divided by 4. So x is less than 5. You see here the sign remained the same. X is less than 5. 3x is greater than 30. To solve for x, you need to divide by 3 on both sides. So we have 3x divided by 3 is greater than 30 divided by 3. X remains greater than 10. But if you divide by a negative number, things are really different. This is one of the most common mistakes with inequalities. If you divide by a negative number in an inequality, you must reverse the sign. So the sign will be the opposite of what you started with. If A is less than B and C is negative, then A divided by C is now greater than B divided by C. If A is greater than B and C is negative, then A divided by C is now less than B divided by C. So let's take a look at some examples here. We have negative 2x is less than 8. To solve for x, we need to divide each side by negative 2. As soon as you divide by negative 2, reverse your sign. Do not wait until the last step or the answer to reverse your sign, because I promise you, you will forget to do it. So make sure you do it right away. As soon as you divide by a negative, reverse the sign. So you'll see I have negative 2x divided by negative 2, and I reverse the sign to greater than 8 divided by negative 2. Make sure you're dividing by the same thing on both sides. X is then greater than negative 4. In the next example, we start with a greater than sign. Negative 5x is greater than 20. We're going to divide both sides by negative 5 to solve for x. So we have negative 5x divided by negative 5 is less than 20 divided by negative 5. You see, I reverse the sign when I divide by negative 5, so it's now a less than sign. X is then less than negative 4. Let's take a look at a word problem. An elevator can carry up to 2,500 pounds. Suppose the weight of an average adult is 150 pounds. At most, how many adults can ride in the elevator at the same time? Since we're trying to find how many adults can ride in the elevator, that's what we want to know. That's our variable. So we're going to define that right away. Let x equal the number of adults. Now, since each adult weighs 150 pounds, the total weight of the adults at any one time in the elevator is 150 times the number of adults. So it would be 150 times x. So, since the weight of the adults can never go over 2,500 pounds, 150x is less than or equal to 2,500. To solve this, we would divide both sides by 150. And that's what I've done here. Now, since 150 is positive, we're not changing the sign. It will stay exactly the same. And when I solve this, I get x is less than or equal to 16.6. Now you have to stop and think logically about this now. You have to round your answer down to the nearest whole number. We can't have a part of a person on an elevator, so 16.6 is not possible. I know in your normal rounding rules, if something is 0.6 and you're rounding to the nearest whole number, you would normally go up to the next whole number. In other words, you would think it was 17. The Think about this. This is saying that the elevator can't hold more than 2,500 pounds, and if you round that up to 17, you'll have more than 2,500 pounds in the elevator, and the elevator will fail. So you need to round down to 16, and then you have that extra missing weight so that the elevator will be safe. The multiplication property of inequalities is very similar to the division property. Just like division, if you multiply both sides of an inequality by the same number, your inequality will stay true. So if A is less than B and C is positive, then AC is less than BC. When you multiply by a positive number on both sides, the sign does not change. If A is greater than B and C is positive, then AC is greater than BC. So we have some examples here. We have x divided by 2 is less than 12. Well, to solve for x, you need to multiply both sides by 2. We want x all by itself. We don't want x divided by 2. So we're going to multiply by 2. 2 times x divided by 2 is less than 2 times 12. So x is less than 12. You see our sign did not change because we multiplied by a positive number. In the next example, you have x divided by 3 is greater than 8. To solve for x, you have to multiply both sides by 3. So we have 3 times x divided by 3 is greater than 3 times 8. So x is greater than 24. But, just like in division, if you multiply by a negative number, the sign will reverse. So here's the property. If A is less than B and C is negative, then A times C is now greater than B times C. Conversely, if A is greater than B and C is negative, then A times C is less than B times C. You should reverse the sign when you multiply so you don't forget it. Do it in your very first step when you start to multiply. So examples here would be t divided by negative 4 is greater than 7. We're going to multiply by negative 4 on both sides and reverse the sign. So negative 4 times t divided by 4 is now less than negative 4 times 7. T is less than negative 28. In the next example, we have x divided by negative 3 is less than 7. So we're going to multiply by negative 3, and then we're going to reverse the sign. So it's going to be negative 3 times x divided by negative 3, and that's greater than negative 3 times 7. You see how I changed the sign there to be greater than. The answer is x is greater than negative 21.